Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead. Aherne. Today's top stories: the COVID-19 death toll has reached 100 in Waterford. Councillors have voted to lease the Aherne Gardens in Tramore to a new non-profit company. While in sport, Ireland head coach Andy Farrell's made 3 changes to his starting 15 for Sunday's Six Nations game against Scotland. 100 people have died in Waterford because of COVID-19 since the outbreak began. That's according to the latest release from the Central Statistics Office. It shows that fewer than 5 deaths related to COVID were recorded in Waterford during last week, the week ending March 5th. 37 people died because of COVID-19 in Waterford during February. 56 people died from the virus in Waterford during January. The median age of those who died was 82. AstraZeneca set to revise down its vaccine targets for the first quarter of the year, according to Reuters. The reported shortfall would see the company deliver just a third of its initial targets to the EU. Here's our political correspondent, Sean Defoe.
On February 25th, AstraZeneca boss Pascal Soro told the EU the company would deliver 40 million doses of vaccine by the end of March. Reuters is now reporting that figure could drop by as much as 25%. Government sources here admit that would have significant implications for the vaccine rollout, just as AstraZeneca has been given the nod by NIAC for use in over 70s. AstraZeneca delivered less than half its expected number of vaccines in February, with mounting frustration in government at the constantly changing numbers. Last night, Health Minister Stephen Donnelly spoke to Ireland's country rep for AstraZeneca, and Taoiseach Micheál Martin is seeking a meeting with the head of the company next week. The government is yet to get confirmation of whether there will be a further shortfall in supply here, but few in government trust the projections from AstraZeneca anymore. Finance Minister Paschal Donohoe says they're chasing every other avenue to get more vaccine.
There is no spare vaccine anywhere in the world. What we need to do is make sure that AstraZeneca and other manufacturers live up to the commitments that we have.
The government insists that breaking with the EU procurement system won't bear fruit, and privately some ministers are furious at having to take the political criticism for shortfalls in delivery that are largely out of their hands.
99% of people over the age of 85 have now received at least the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. That's according to Waterford Minister of State Mary Butler, who's welcomed the new visiting guidelines for nursing homes and HSE residential care facilities. From 10 days' time, residents will be allowed to receive 2 visits every week under compassionate grounds. Deputy Butler says as more people over the age of 70 are inoculated, we can expect further restrictions to be eased.
By the end of this week, GPs will have administered over 130,000 doses to the over 70s. So as you know, we started with the over 85s. Now, as of last weekend, and I do accept that there was some challenges last weekend in relation to supply and getting the vaccine out to some practices. But 99% of all over 85s have been finished.
The Director of Care at Clough Nursing Home in Waterford City, meanwhile, says there's great excitement about the return of visitors. Mary Burke spoke to Damien Tiernan on Daisha today.
They've been really resilient over the past year in spite of everything. Our residents have been fantastic, and our staff have been fantastic in looking after them during what has been probably the most challenging year in all our professional careers in nursing.
Waterford councillors have voted to lease the acclaimed Aherne Japanese Gardens to a new non-profit company. It'll replace the Tramore Development Trust, which has been overseeing the development of the site for the past decade. The new company, which is named after the gardens, will include many of the same people who are part of the town's development trust. Yesterday's vote was not passed without controversy, as some councillors called for the lease to be deferred. Sinn Féin's Pat Fitzgerald was against completing the transfer immediately.
The issue I have with it is that despite the fact it was a public park to begin with, a large amount of public money has been spent on it in the meantime. The public are no longer entitled to free access. That smacks like, if we're going to have a public park and we're going to spend public money on it, I believe the public should actually benefit for it and not be excluded.
Tramore councillor Joe Conway says there was nothing unusual about the public having to pay for entry.
As far as I know, all of the Office of Public Works facilities around the country do charge an entrance fee, even though they're in receipt of huge amount of public monies. So I don't think that companies who get public money should be debarred from charging an entrance fee if it means that they can sustain themselves and go forward.
A business representative group says decades of underinvestment in key infrastructure is threatening to undermine the prospect of economic recovery for the South East. IBEC has made a submission to the mid-term review of the National Development Plan. Senior Regional Executive Helen Leahy says a more ambitious plan is required.
A plan that lacks ambition and scale ultimately will threaten the South East prospects of recovery. The South East is already experiencing slower economic recovery than the national average before the pandemic took hold. So this plan really will need to ensure a big focus on quality of life. Better quality of life will attract talent and will attract investment to Waterford and the wider region.
Over 700 young people have been identified as money mules by Gardaí in the last year. Organised crime gangs are targeting people on social media and in school or college, as Casey O'Riordan reports.
The average age of a money mule in Ireland is just 19. Criminals convince their target to hand over their bank details before lodging money to be withdrawn or transferred abroad. Detective Superintendent Mick Crine explains how people become money mules.
In small amount of cases, they're paying off drug debts. In small amount of cases, they're forced, intimidated, coerced. But in most of them, they're recruited via social media and they believe it's easy money. You know, it's advertised, make money easy.
In just one ongoing Garda investigation, 32 money mules have been arrested, including a 15-year-old girl. Detective Chief Superintendent Pat Lorden says allowing yourself to be used as a money mule can ruin your life.
If you get arrested and convicted for money laundering and terrorist financing for an amount of 2 or 3 or 5,000 euros going through your account, you have great difficulties for the rest of your life.
Gardaí are asking parents to educate their children on the serious consequences of allowing someone else to use their bank account.
The Paycogue Arts Festival for Young People will host an open mic and guest speaker event online this evening. It takes place at 7:30 and is to celebrate Waterford's Seachtain na Gaeilge Sna Naoise. Katie Halpin-Hill is one of the event's organisers and explains more about it.
Paycogue is a bilingual youth arts festival. Our aim is to kind of give a platform to young people to express themselves creatively through the medium of Irish or whatever language they choose, but predominantly Irish or English. The event we're holding tomorrow for Seachtain na Gaeilge is a mic oscailta, so an open mic, and an agalav, so an interview with Niamh Cronin, who is the manager of Radio Rera, and she'll be talking a little bit about the Irish language, working with the Irish language, specifically Conn na Gaeilge, and just, I suppose, her experiences.
Make the smart play with Virgin Media. Check out their smart home packages at Virgin Media George's Street, Waterford.
Sponsors of the sports news on WLR.
And a very good afternoon, I'm Gavin. Whelan. Starting with rugby, and Ireland's head coach Andy Farrell has made 3 changes to his starting 15 for Sunday's Six Nations game against Scotland at Murrayfield. Keane Healy and Rob Herring come into the front row, while Keith Earls will start on the right wing. Jemison Gibson Park retains the scrum half jersey with Conor Murray on the bench and Craig Casey dropping out of the matchday squad. Kick-off on Sunday is at 3 o'clock. This evening in the Guinness Pro 14, Joey Cadbury starts for Munster against the Scarlets at Thomond Park. It's an 8 p.m. kick-off there. Leinster are away to Zebre from 5:45. To soccer, and it's understood manager Chris Wilder has left Sheffield United. The club is bottom of the Premier League with 10 games to go and they look certain to be relegated. A news conference scheduled for this morning has been cancelled ahead of United's top flight game with Leicester on Sunday. Tonight, cross channel, Newcastle host Aston Villa in the Premier League. Kick-off on Tyneside is at 8. Closer to home, Shamrock Rovers take on Dundalk in the President's Cup at Tallaght Stadium. That one kicks off at 7:45. Next to cycling, and Ireland's Sam Bennett takes a 9-point lead at the summit of the points classification into today's 6th stage of the Paris-Nice event. Today's 200km hill stage will take the peloton from Brigno to Bio. In Gaelic Games, Mount Sion chairman Seamie Clear is disappointed that the GA Injury Benefit Fund won't cover loss of wages for 2021. He fears that there will be big consequences later in the year if a player picks up a bad injury.
The major issue, as I see it, Moss, is that a lot of people haven't seen it, and it will take, somebody will get a serious injury, be they inter-county or club, and there'll be nothing there for them. They'll be out of work. I think that the whole publicity that will come with it as well will be terrible. I think it's the thin end of the wedge. I think once it goes, it's gone forever. That would be very disappointing. I mean, the one thing you would always be delighted was the way we did treat our players in the GA. If they were injured, if they were out, if they had to have operations, we always treated them well. And you'd be quite proud of that. If a fella got injured, you say, well, you know he's going to be looked after. I think, unfortunately, we're heading in this race to the bottom now, whereby we're just not going to be doing that anymore, and that's hugely disappointing.
You can hear more from Shamie Clear on this evening's Lorna Porca with Tomás from 6:10 here on WLR. And finally, for now, to racing, trainer Willie Mullins has ruled Innergameen out of the Cheltenham Festival. The gelding was due to take on Shiskin in the Arkle Chase on Tuesday, but has met with a setback. On the track today, the going will be heavy for this afternoon's 8-race card at Goran Park. The first race is underway shortly at 1:40. There's also an 8-race flat meeting later this evening on the all-weather track at Dundalk. Action at the Loud venue is underway from 4:55.